Hello and welcome to a brand new podcast on the BBC, the Ireland Rugby Social, with me, Gavin Andrews.
And me, Conor Murray.
Today we are at the home of an Ireland great and your old mate, Rory.
We Rory, yeah.
Do you think he'd be kind?
Depends what form we get him in, but yeah, he'd be kind to me, maybe not so you, but
He's going to be brutal, he always is. Can't wait.
Rory, I don't know whether to be scared or not.
Why would you be scared?
Just
I'm scared too.
Just a scary dude.
Scared, yeah.
Right, well, tell us about the relationship between you two boys before we start, when you met first with Ireland. Maybe before.
No, not before, wasn't it? It was first time I met Rory was 2011, pre World Cup, I think, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You came in the summer, did you?
came in the summer, kind of like Bolter, if you will, and then the first day in Carton House, I remember being unbelievably intimidated by like Dricko, Bestie, Rob Kearney. They were all the kind of cool.
Was he that high
higher
up the
profile?
pecking order
Yeah,
at that
I would
stage?
put him. Well, that's what he says. He was hanging around with them anyway.
You have any memories of that time you were the main man then, or approaching that kind of territory?
2011 was there was still that big rivalry with Jerry. Actually, it was at that stage where I was sort of starting a lot more. He'd been injured quite a bit, and I sort of felt like I was the number one hooker. But you knew at any point in time if he got to run a game as a quality player, you wouldn't know what would happen. But I do remember him coming in. Conor was, look, you hear all these bits and pieces when young kids come in. There's so many of them come and go, but you'll always get a feel for the ones that are probably going to stay with a bit of luck and avoid injuries, that are going to stand the test of time. And you just had a feeling with Conor. He had so much time in the ball. He was so unflappable. And for me, halfbacks, if you can get halfbacks that are unflappable, I know Johnny probably bucks that trend a little bit.
I know. Yeah.
If you get
Yin and yang.
halfbacks that have time in the ball, and like ultimately, you gotta like the people you play with. And Conor, when he first come in, this is the end of all the compliments you're getting.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see when we
slow start.
start talking real. Yeah,
But I think certain players just go, yeah. It's the same when Gary Ringrose come in. You just straight away went, yeah, there's something about them. And you hope you're right because they're good guys. And thankfully Conor was. And we ended up playing for the next 8 years together in the same team.
Was Joe the big factor for Irish rugby? If you think of the last 20 years, the most significant person, perhaps?
yeah,
His name's come up a lot already.
yeah. I would, and like people have their opinions, and then we're going back to Andy again. He's getting loads of plaudits, which he deserves. But Joe laid the foundations definitely for me, and that generation of player. Like he individually, he made me way better as a player. Like I wasn't thinking about the game of rugby half hard enough when Joe arrived, and he challenged me. Even like playing with Johnny at the time challenged me, and then the players you're surrounded by, and we're going on this kind of journey, because the first November series we did nearly beat New Zealand. We were for me, and I was like, hold on now, we've never come this close. Where's this team going? And that drove me to get better, and I presume a lot of other players got better because of Joe. Like you couldn't. The fear at the start of getting something wrong with Joe was like so high that you had to be perfect, and like just the detail stuff and your core skill. Like my pass was a little bit off for a launch play or whatever. He'd highlighted it in the team meeting, and then
I think that was probably the biggest thing from my point of view, was his ability to make it about the team, whereas previous coaches had made it about, like if you take that 2018, Jacob would do something incredible and score in the corner, and previous coaches would have highlighted Jacob's try, what a try, brilliant, that's what we need to be like. Whereas Joe would look at the 3 rucks before it and go, they were a second quicker than they could have been because he cleaned it out. And then he looked at Johnny's pass for one of the try against Wales, I think it was.
Remember, yeah.
Halfpenny's not intercepting that because he doesn't believe that you can throw it.
Yeah.
But the execution,
He ripped it,
and
didn't
and he literally went bang, bang, bang. This all happened because everyone on the team. I remember the first pre-season was sitting up in Ulster, and he phoned. So I did the usual you do with new coach coming in. Yeah, I'm working hard on my fitness, and I want to improve my ball.
Training in the stands.
I want to improve my ball carrying, and I want to do this, that, the other. And
Tick. Yeah,
and he just turned to me and he goes,
have I said all the right answers?
And most coaches go, yeah, that's great, glad to hear it.
Yeah.
And he turned and he goes, yeah, bestie. He goes, yeah, all that's great, and keep working on that. But he goes, you see, to be honest, You see if you can clean the breakdown for us. We have loads of ball carriers in that pack. You're one of the few ones that can get us the ruck a second or half a second quicker. So if you hit 50 rucks in a game and Cian Healy or Sean O'Brien carry 30 times each, he goes, that's brilliant for us.
Yeah.
And it was the first time, then he used to show clips of the breakdown. And like I was never showed in highlight reels at all in previous campaigns.
He was
and all of a
star
sudden
man.
it was like, it was, this is important.
Whacking lads.
Whack, and all you do is whack lads. It was quite simple. But it meant he understood what it meant to the team. The same with Conor, you know, he would have highlighted the bad pass, but he would also highlighted and he goes, this is why we're the best team in the world, because that ball is getting there a split second quicker to their 10, which is giving our world-class 10 a split second more time. And you give world-class players a split second more time, they make the right decisions and they score points. Yeah.
It opened me, as you're saying it there, it just educated me in rugby. And like he said about Jacob doing something mental down the wing, and then he'd go back 3 or 4 rucks and you'd see how quick those 3 rucks were, and you're like, oh, that's what, like, it just opened your eyes to rugby. I was like, before, admittedly, like you would have been like, oh, that's great, quick ball or whatever, but like seeing lads like melt rucks really cleanly and give us quick ball, and that made you appreciate those lads for like putting their head down and getting stuck in and then giving us the time.
And I think it's allowed an evolution now. Certainly, like, you'll speak better to it, but like I knew Faz as an assistant coach. Like, he's a brilliant assistant coach, and he's now become a world-class head coach. But it almost, there's a bit of an evolution of the stuff that Joe did, and Faz is such a brilliant rugby mind that he's seen the stuff he liked, he's seen the stuff he doesn't like. And maybe at the start, he had to go so extreme away from Joe and it being very, you know, very processed and very, here's our plays, here's our patterns, to take it right away from that. And I think in the first sort of Six Nations, our breakdown was nowhere near what it had been. But you've got to break those chains. And then it looks to me like he's brought it back to when we're the best, we were the best rucking team in the world, let's not lose it. But you're not going to identify who it is. And he's been able to evolve from the level that Joe brought, and then went, right, well, actually these players have now got, let's give them a little bit more, I don't know what you want to call it,
freedom. Strip it down a little bit and let lads,
and sort of that evolution is what, you know, and all the good systems, like New Zealand is the best for it. You know, you look at the last number of years, you know, the provincial coaches go to Super Rugby coaches, and then go into the underage, and then go to the All Blacks, and the assistant becomes the head coach, and they don't really want coaches from anywhere else. And we have a different sort of system, but actually that evolution of coaches coming through, and you hope that that's going to be the next step, where Faz is effectively showing a way for somebody to step into that, but then bring their own ideas on it and grow it again.
Is that level of intensity that, say, Joe Schmidt had unsustainable maybe in the club game? Like, how do you get away from that is he almost perfect for international rugby because he can be all just in for an autumn?
Quick snapshots of him.
It's hard to know, because ultimately Claremont hadn't won the top 14 for years, and he was an assistant coach to Vern Cotter, and they won it. Leinster had always been seen as a team that struggled, and Czech had given them a bit of a harder edge, and they were getting there, and then Joe came in and completely dominated everything. So, and that was club game.
Yeah, I think from chatting to Leinster lads, that like Joe was a little bit more relaxed as a club coach, because you're in every single day, whereas in international camp it can be, you know, relative short bursts of time together, and he can be quite intense, and you know, he has hands on you pretty much 24/7 nearly, doesn't he? And then,
plus presumably more is possible with the level of player.
I think the big thing is it's the time he has. You know, like when you're building something for 10 months, knowing that there's no point peaking in September because you win the trophy in May, June, whenever it is now. You know, you got to be able to peak in June, and you can't run people into the ground and it'd be done by Christmas, because we've seen there's loads of clubs that do that. There's international teams that do that. So I think he's a smart enough rugby man to understand how to peak and how to build something to get it. The difference, like Conor says, is when you take a Six Nations, you have a 2-week build-in, and then you have 5 games to peak. So actually it has to be really intense.
And you probably have players as well that can take on information a lot quicker, and you know, and drive it themselves. I presume, I know in club rugby you're dealing with quite a variable level of player. You are. It's just the way it is. Like, you've lads from maybe an academy who aren't used to that type of intensity.
Is that frustrating?
only when Roy said it a while ago about coming back from camp with Joe, and you're exposed to this high level of coaching and obviously players, and then you come back to your club, it's just naturally, it's just the way it is. You're going to take a little bit of a step down. And I remember me, Peter O'Mahony, and Keith Earls, and a few of these guys coming back to Munster, and we kind of had to check ourselves, be like, here lads, it's not camp anymore. This lad's, he's coming from school to train with us. You know what I mean? You can't expect the same thing. So
that was probably more extreme for you, Rory, because Ulster, didn't quite have the levels of Munster.
Certainly at the very start of Joe's tenure, when we had that good team with Afoa and Muller and Pinar. Obviously Jared was just about to come into Ireland. He was with Ulster. It was a wee bit easier then. Towards the end, look, it is, and again, it goes back to one of the points you made about Declan. You also got to understand what you're dealing with, and you got to understand what people's ceilings are, and try to get them to that point as much as you can. But you do need it. I am a big believer, and I've heard somebody like Joe going, "Oh, it's player driven." It's nonsense. It's player driven. No. You've got to build a vehicle for the players to drive, and if you don't get that from the top, then you're just. Doesn't matter. All that happens is all the players have different views, and you end up getting pulled and all over it. Yeah. And it just there was a few times with Ulster where you felt if we did this like we do in camp, but the reality is you can't.
Or you're trying to coach something you saw in camp, and trying to coach it yourself, and you're like, you know what Joe taught you to do, and you know exactly how to do it. And I remember seeing Pete trying to coach the breakdown, with a very specific way of rucking, basically, and he tried to coach it, but. I could see he knew exactly what he was talking about, but then you look at the lads looking at him and they're like,
and then it comes down to the accountability.
And then you, like you said, you've so many players with so many different views, and you don't have a main driver of the vehicle, like you said. And it's just it can make you worse.
Totally. No, it absolutely can. Because you've now all of a sudden lost clarity, and trying to help, you've ended up everyone's kind of going.
What do you know? Even more.
Yeah.
It seems ultra intense. Clearly, it was. The whole world's watching, do you look at the phone? Do you look at the paper? How do you unwind during these smiling? How does Rory best unwind?
That question as well. I'd like to know how he does it properly.
Stories are there.
I've never been there with him. Never been there.
Never. You were never.
Rory, let's talk about the young Rory Best before he became the ambassador that he ended up being.
The young Rory Best had no issues.
Yeah, I didn't really experience the young Rory Best. Yeah, I got the sensible version.
That was a different era, so it was.
All right, well, tell us about it.
Well, to be honest, that used to be Six Nations, for example, was always a black tie dinner afterwards, and we got ourselves convinced that there's so much pressure in the build up to the week and playing the match that you needed to unwind and let off some steam, and we let off a lot of steam through that black tie. I remember going out for a black tie dinner. With a game the next week, an international the next week, and boys,
7 days later.
Oh my, properly going at it.
Well, your idea of properly going at it and the real world is completely different as well.
Yeah,
give us an idea of what
properly going at it.
Yeah,
and that's where it then, if I think through
he's
my
not
career,
saying he's deflecting.
He's gotten very good at this.
It became more about let's, instead of it being every week, let's pick moments, and we'll sort of go, and then it gives you something to look forward to, because it is, and it's a
you do need a release.
You do need a release, and you need to spend a bit of time in somebody's company and just to relax, and whether they're having a Coke or whether they're having a pint of beer doesn't really matter.
Wink.
And
for everyone listening, he's smirking.
Yeah, but he's lying through his teeth.
It is about getting away and just spend a bit of time together, and obviously,
in 2018 we didn't. I never drank as much.
No,
the 2018 it was because we had this whole run of. Being sensible, picking our moments, but for 2018 it was every game, and there was a couple of times we came home from an away game on the Sunday evening. No, we weren't in camp maybe till the Monday because we had a Sunday game again, and we were like, let's go out. I remember being in Pygmalion in Dublin with Peter O'Mahony, dancing with an espresso martini in his teeth, holding it in the air, and then we got to the Grand Slam. We won the Grand Slam, and then we were like, we're so tight. We all. There was 5-6 of us, and the girls went to Dubai together, proper bonded teammates.
The bond, that's the big thing.
There is a thing with it. There's sensible levels to it, and when you get it right, you get it spot on. Obviously, no better leader.
But it was wild, different days when you kind of started.
Oh, and it started, yeah. No, it was definitely. Look, we didn't really. If you think I made my debut for Ireland in 2005, and rugby don't even professional for what?
What was it,
10 years?
Yeah, mid-90s,
About 10 years. So, like, and you think of like a 10-year period for something to start, like it really
Got the
didn't have a
amateur
clue,
part with you for a while.
Like even the food side of it, everything, recovery, you had no concept of.
So what was your day back then during the Six Nations? Well, let's not talk about the night out. We'll not make you do that. But in terms of all that
Your
kind of stuff.
working day.
The working day, like you're
Get up
still
Friday.
doing a lot of contact, like loads of live scrums.
Oh.
Like even the weights were like full on, like maybe 90-minute sessions in the gym. You might have done a row. Like remember the fitness trainer used to come in and every now and again he'd have on the board shock start, and you'd have to go onto the rower and like row. I don't know what
This
they'd do, like,
in Irish camp.
in Irish camp,
you
yeah.
put in this.
And you'd be on the rower doing like a 2K row, and then you go and do your weights. And like, I mean, my heart is about here somewhere at this stage, you know, right out here. I'm just like going, this is a Tuesday before you're playing a test match.
That is
in the Six
unimaginable.
Nations. You're just
They don't
like,
talk. They like in nowadays. It's like there's S&C and they're unbelievable, but they're just kind of maintaining lads, aren't they? There's not
Yeah,
really
totally.
because the level is probably
like
higher
physio-
from your club to country.
even the
and
physio side of things, you know, you kind of like there was no prehab, minimal. Your rehab was you got treated until you were ready to play, and then see you later.
Yeah.
Out you go, and if you come back in, we'll strap you. But like, that's about the height of it.
You just played hurt in those days, theoretically.
Yeah, we were a lot tougher back then.
fair. This is fair. I agree.
But it was, and look at, and like obviously I saw that evolution go right through the whole way, and it was just a learning. Like rugby had no concept, and Irish rugby especially, because like we are rooted in, you know, this sort of history of being class for 60 minutes and then blowing up, and all the stories of people smoking and having pints the morning of the night before games and all of that sort of stuff. I'm talking way back.
he just missed that. Thank God.
Yeah, in 05, 06.
Only on a Thursday night.
Yeah. Just 2 nights before the game.
But it's like the evolution in terms of all of that, the training. Like you used to be on the pitch for ages. We used to train at some of the worst places. Like I mean,
You'd all like a mad bus, like hotel
Yeah.
hour bus to train and all this kind of stuff.
to train on a club pitch that was basically a bog in the middle of the winter, you know, you just like remember training, doing scrums, and like you were in the boots, but we pushing against each other. But all that was happening was nobody was moving except everyone's feet was just getting lower and lower into the ground, and you sort of nearly had to
Sapping
pull
the energy
your
out of you for
leg
the
back.
weekend.
It was horrific. It was. Brian McLaughlin used to be there and used to put on the amateur boxing helmets and go under the net, and it was full on breakdown stuff. It was.
That'd be right up your
At
street.
that- yeah, and like at that point when McLaugh's come in, like that was revolutionary to have somebody who was just focused on the breakdown. He had all these little techniques, you know, the croc roll, which is now outlawed. You know, you smash them and how to carry and all of that. But when you look now, like there's not a chance. There's like somebody gets hit with a pad now and
Too hard and it's like sessions blown up.
Totally, yeah. You know,
It's
and look, it's
completely-
because they understand it's about building in the week to make sure that you're the most important thing is Saturday or whenever the kickoff is that you're
feel $1 million,
physically,
yeah.
totally.
Like I remember when I started going down to film, like early noughties, and the front rows were in fighting and training, and we were allowed to film the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was almost the guys who fancied a shot at the title would have a go on a Tuesday.
That was the way it was done. Yeah, when I was in the academy and I'd go to like the odd senior session with Munster, and you'd go up and you'd be just waiting for something to break. It would often be forwards on forwards, and we'd be just watching. But like some of those lads, like Liam's, Paulie, these kind of lads who had lads taking a shot at them probably every week. You know, young lads thinking it's their time, and they just have to go to war on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then they have to go play a game on the Saturday. It's night and day to what I saw just the tail end of it, and then everything else was just you're minded for the right reasons.
Yeah,
but-
and like ultimately it then became about probably towards the end of my career, it became about understanding that the value of the squad. It used to be the value of the starting team, and then it was the value of the 23, and then it became the value of everyone, and actually everyone contributing and driving each other on. But ultimately, you've got a same common purpose, and that's to win the weekend. And that was sort of probably a bit of an evolution as well. I think Faz, from what I gather, has really taken that to a different level.
you know, when people talk about an Andy Farrell camp and the media have probably heard it so many times. Players like, oh, it's the best place to be. It's like whatever he's done, whatever kind of way he's worked it. Like lads who even aren't playing are loving life in there. Now they are disappointed on the Saturday when they don't get to tog out, but just the environment.
That's the balance, isn't it? Because you want people to be disappointed. But
Yeah,
then
you don't want
them
to
to
feel
understand
like,
that they have a part to play still.
Yeah, and the game's changed so much. It's the idea of the finishers now as opposed to replacements.
Yeah.
Which is
it's
a physical thing almost, isn't it?
You see, especially South Africa do it well. Like they leave like someone you'd see as a clear starter on the bench, and like they come on at like 42 minutes or whatever. Like so, like there's loads of ways of.
It's almost quite good for Ireland with different kind of players in the bench now. If you think of the 10s at the minute, but that's another story.
Yeah, and like and hookers, like there's you could start 3 or 4 of them, like depending on the game and stuff. So
it's funny that bench side of things and the squad contribution that was coming back from Chicago in 2016. That was the biggest Joe did to me was, so we played Canada the next week. So our big thing was understanding player profiles, and you need to know the opposition as well as you know yourself. And we got in the Tuesday morning meeting, and he goes, Rory, talk us through the Canadian front row. And I went, Joe, I don't know, I haven't looked at it. He went, that's exactly it.
Potentially I remember this.
He goes, if we were playing New Zealand this week, you'd be all over it. And just because we're playing Canada, you don't. You know, you knew the team last week. That's why we're successful last week. If we go back to being like this, we'll be inconsistent. And look, he came up and said, look, I knew I told you you weren't playing. I knew you hadn't looked at them because obviously we'd flown back, you were wrecked. But he goes, I needed to make a point to the players that were playing against Canada that actually no one is above reproach and everyone needs to be on board. And he also goes, I know you could take it. So it was like,
and he's
sucking the life.
He'd have those lads that played against Canada thinking they were playing New Zealand at the weekend, wouldn't he? Like any team we were playing, whether you like expected to win or not, he would have them up in lights. Like he'd have all their profiles up, all like their highlight reels, and you're like, oh my god, these are unbelievable. And then like
let's hope some of the Canada players are listening.
And sorry, they were good at times, but like you come from New Zealand to Canada, there's obviously a bit of a difference.
Yeah,
but Joe would have.
Which ones are good, Conor?
They're the same. No comment.
Just name a couple of names.
Hassler, yes, Hassler the winger. Hassler is very good. You name one. Name one of their front rows.
The wee lad with the beard that I played against the World Cup.
Didn't work out so well for you.
Right, but from Cudmore, does he still play?
Oh yeah, Paulie's mate.
Yeah, he's a big lad. Yeah. Let's circle back then from Canada to history, and it kind of started a couple of years before that, didn't it? With 2-3 years before the
Indy Viva.
Yeah.
That was the most, well, not the most, but a gut wrenching game. Because we came so, but I look back at that game and it was 2013, wasn't it? November
13,
and we had, I don't know if we had lost that game, would we have beaten them in Chicago? But I remember from that big lesson from that game was, do not try and shut up shop against New Zealand. That's what we tried to do. We got this lead of 3 tries to 1 or whatever it was.
Yeah, we're 21-0 up.
Yeah, 21-0 up after Cairns.
All I needed to do was
rampaged over in that game.
He had a broken arm. Was that the one you broke your arm? And you got
21-0.
They should have built a statue for hitting a ruck with the other arm.
Stayed in the pitch for a bit longer and then went, right, can't do nothing more. Surely these guys can see this through.
He had 21-0. Hit a ruck with his other arm. And then Joe put him up in lights in the meeting the next day, like, look at this warrior. And we're like, it's the other arm that's broken. But we stopped playing, and we were like, oh my god, we've a lead, let's try hold out. And they obviously came back and won. And
that was the famous analysis session, wasn't it? But Joe took a fine tooth comb to the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game.
The last phase of play.
That's
when he really, again, you talked about the finishers. That's when he really went. He hammered the bench that come on, and he showed the mistakes, how they didn't fit into the system, how they didn't know their stuff. And he goes, then he'd highlight someone that had played 80 minutes. He goes, look, he's in the right place, he's doing the right thing, and he's played 80 minutes. You're meant to be coming on and making us better, not worse. And I think Lukey then was the end of the highlight was Lukey breaking the line to give another kick at it. Yeah, because it would have been a draw. Then he got a second go at it because Nigel Owens couldn't allow us to draw or beat New Zealand.
Yeah.
And he retook
Hi, Nigel.
And like Joe says, you let world-class players have 2 kicks at it, they're going to get it the second time. So he did. He showed all of that. But it definitely gave us a lot of confidence that we go, look, that was us that lost that, not them beating us, which was big, because we'd had a few goes reasonably close to them.
When was it? 2012.
2012.
Wasn't that long before that we lost 16
again.
Was
Oh,
it
the 16
16-0,
the second test in Christchurch.
Yeah,
we
they dropped.
We were 12 all, and
yeah.
then Nigel Owens penalised us in a scrum that we hammered them in. They kicked to the corner, and eventually Dan Carter.
Was that
hit
the drop
goal.
Ball? Yeah, and
yeah, clearly got over it.
Thanks, Nigel.
Thanks, Nigel. Again, it's Rory that's saying all these things, so nothing to do with us.
Nigel admitted himself now with.
I
No, he wouldn't,
probably
obviously.
I think that they were massive building blocks for us to go and eventually beat them and believe we could beat them. Because in Chicago, then the confidence was through the roof that week. I thought it was just a completely different team, and that was in my opinion, the big turning point for us.
Because it was a funny one, that one, because you sort of looked at it and went, I still think that Joe thought we'd push them close in Chicago, get another boost in the arm to think we could beat them 2 weeks later at home.
Yeah.
Because like Pete, Shawnee, Hendy were all fit to play, just come back from injuries.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to risk them. He wanted to play them at the Aviva. And look, as it turned out, the boys he brought in, I know Geordie Murphy did his ACL that day.
Was that his last? Someone said that was his last.
Was it?
Game for Ireland, I think. Yeah.
And he then, but he was brilliant in that opening until he got injured.
Yeah.
And we had boys come in, like Alton Delan came off the bench. And
He was a good athlete, wasn't he?
yeah.
Yeah. Class. Yeah, these boys that came
There
on.
was such a good feeling around that week. And we probably changed a little bit about the way.
The training was different, wasn't it?
Yeah. And we then looked at the game differently and went, look, we can't try to beat New Zealand by scoring 3 points. We kicked to the corner. Probably the start of us kicking to the corner a lot more.
All try, and then was he CJ's try as well?
That happened. Was that the time where it started changing? Because the tradition would be go for 3 all the time. And
That's actually, that's probably
and
around
we
the
just
time.
went, no, we're going to go. Because New Zealand traditionally had went, they would score or they would kick a penalty or you would get into their 22, they would kill the ball, it would be 3-0, they would do a short kick off, Retallick or Reid would catch it.
That's
4 or 5
true,
phases later, it's 7-3, you would kick off again, you'd get another penalty, 7-6, they would kick off, get it back, and 14-6, 2 scores ahead, and that was it.
Then they just keep doing that,
And we kind of went, look, that's what, they expect everyone to do that, well, why don't we just flip it a bit and go, look, when it's on, we'll kick, but actually let's go to the corner and back ourselves to go and put pressure, because what happens is, when you kick to the corner, it's not always about scoring tries. Of course, that's the ultimate goal, but it's about a team feeling like these boys are not going away. Like we don't get when you go for the post. Sometimes a team can breathe a sigh of relief because they know even if you get it, the next thing they're going to do is kick it off long into your 22. They'll probably get a line out around the halfway line, and now they can attack, and it's on their terms.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go to the corner, you're just saying to them, nah, you're not getting out of your own 22, because there's no worse place to be in rugby than in your own
Walking
22,
back towards your
and it's
5,
getting worse and worse and worse the closer you get to your line. So we had a bit of probably a big change in mentality there to go, we felt we'd need to score more than the 20 points that we scored in 13. Now, we scored 40. I don't think we thought we'd need to score 40, but that was the mentality, and that was the same mentality at half time, was we need to score again.
My personal view on that day was when we did the formation, the figure of 8, and we were at the front, the Munster players. I remember just looking across at New Zealand, and very rarely happens that you're like, well, no way today, like not a hope. And you might try and get yourself up for a club game and say that, but it doesn't hit home. That day I was like, no other way today, and I think we were all galvanised by that, and and that brought the emotion to 100. And then obviously with everything else that we were doing right, it was just made for it.
Yeah, it was an amazing statement.
Yeah, because I think it was so important, because that was the first time the Irish team had been together since Axel's passing, and I think for Irish rugby, for a show of support to Munster, Axel's family, and then obviously as important to us is all the players that had been coached by him, some had played alongside him, for us to show them that it did hit home to us was really, really important. I remember we sort of talked about that figure of 8, and then sort of one thing we did say was that when the crowd figure out what we're doing, because everyone tries to do different things to the haka, but when the crowd see it displaced, because it's going to be largely Irish, are going to go ballistic, and they did, and
that was really cool when we went into the formation, and the crowd, you could literally nearly hear him be like, "Oh my
Working
God,
out.
that's- yeah." Like, oh, and then
Because once the camera
wild.
kind of panned to it and you could see it on the big screen, because everyone's like looking, you know what it's like. you
Except
look at the
everyone did
sheet
it
level.
perfectly, except Andrew Trimble couldn't find his slot.
Well, the other one
Had
was
to be
You had
Trimble.
to be Trimble.
Alton Delan ended
I
up
know.
on the wrong side. So if you look
Yeah.
at the 8, it's slightly lopsided.
Yeah, brilliant.
So it
And
is.
we had practiced it. Like,
Oh, we practiced
That was-
it loads.
Really? So
We practiced it in the team room. And
yeah,
in the
remember Joe
stadium.
would have us come in. You'd come in like into the huddle just before we go into the formation, and
Yeah.
you'd kind of position yourself like
Yeah.
on near here when we break out.
Joe
And then
have a
Joe would be
laser
like
up?
mix around, like swap seats or whatever, and then you'd be like trying to. It was carnage,
It
but we
was.
nailed it every time.
Yeah, we did.
then-
Except on the big moment. Just
on
two
the
people.
day. Yeah.
Trimble
And that
was-
took a little away from the haka, obviously. Is that always the challenge of playing New Zealand because they have that little bit of an advantage, or did you enjoy that?
I never. I grown up watching the haka and finding it so cool to watch on TV, and then anytime I played against them, I genuinely just watched it and I was like, this is class to see live. I don't know, I just loved it, and I
Yeah.
love watching New Zealand. So
I'd be saying, the
yeah,
people thing.
other people do.
Yeah, when you're looking for stuff, the people try to find ways that they get an advantage from it. And look, they'll get their own emotional lift. And the way we always looked at it, the way I looked at it as a captain was going, right, well, actually, let's find our bit. And look, if you need to look beyond them to the scoreboard to think about what's important to you, or if you want to step across the line or whatever is going to be symbolic to us, to make sure that we have our own emotional bit, because that's theirs. But I had the same as Conor. I loved facing it. And what certainly the hookers did anyway, they'd find you in the line and they would stare at you the whole
Yeah,
time. You just
you're
stuff like
absolutely
that. Like,
right, yeah.
if that doesn't motivate you and sort of stir something inside you, then you're probably playing the wrong sport anyway. So no, I was the same. But it's such a historic thing. And they've obviously
You
made
enjoy
it
it,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, a big thing. Like when you look back at the haka in the 60s and 70s, it looks more like Morris dancing than the haka you see now. But look, they are a team that are very, very aware of their brand. They're very, very aware of all of that, and all these books and all this stuff comes out, that they know that it all forms part of the mystique that is New Zealand rugby, and they're very good at it. So we have to find our own way to go, well, actually, what is it about us that we
Yeah.
need to bring out today? And this is part of their stuff, and it's class to face, but actually it's about us the whole time.
That was a great All Blacks team. I think they had 18 wins in a row or something when they came to play you boys,
That's
something
right,
like that.
Yeah.
What did it mean then to get over the line that last 20 minutes? I suppose that last 3 minutes as well. When
Last 3 minutes was the best, wasn't it? Surreal, wasn't it? So surreal that I remember when Robbie scored his final try, and
Yeah.
Joey converted it on his first cap, which was class, and then running back, I remember Zebo going mental with Joey. That he got, I think he did get the conversion. He did it because it was 38, and then I was chatting to Rob Kearney, and I was like, looking at the scoreboard, I was like, we're well beyond 7 points. They can't score twice. Like this is done. It's over. And I remember going to Rob like, look, man, we're going like this is unbelievable. Look around like this, and he was like, just catch the kick off, and we'll do the next. And Rob, look at the time. there's they cannot score again, and he's like, I suppose you're actually right. Hell, we'll go mental this evening. And if he denies that, you did say that, Rob. And then we just had the best time ever. Yeah.
what would you like as a captain?
What time does this go out?
Yeah, do the pre 10 o'clock version.
No, he was brilliant. And we had obviously so much success with Rory at the helm, because I think number one for me, probably coming in as a young player, like the way Rory got on with like a fella coming in the door for the first time, and a fella that has been there for 10, 15 years, there was no difference, and he was as approachable for the young fella as he was to the older fella in the room, and he's smiling, but
Approachable.
yeah, he would, and maybe not to the outside world, but he actually is quite a decent fella. Yeah, I think just whatever, like him as a player, incredible, as a leader, and knowing what to say, when to say it. But I often look at like captains through my time. I've experienced loads of captains, and I think genuinely socially, even if it's just on the bus to training or whatever, like being one of the lads and being part of the crack and being fully immersed, and like committed to like that bond that we spoke about at the start of this, like being a genuine mate and a genuine like person to go to war with. You know, you see some captains that you probably wouldn't see outside the hotel room. You see him at training, you see him in meeting rooms, and that would be about the height of it. But like being fully invested, I think was probably his strength that he showed us throughout the years. Like with the playing ability and the left leg and all that stuff aside, it was that I think was really big, because that year we were probably the tightest squad I've been a part of. You know, like genuine mates, and you know we're still here today.
Is it nice to have one more captain? Huh?
Yeah, that was a huge thing for me in the last year, as I was hanging on by the fingernails to get that last cap. Yeah. Look,
You know,
he motivates you.
yeah.
He motivates you.
Donald Callahan said to me at the World Cup in 2011, and they asked me to go on against Russia at the tail end of they were winning whatever, and I went, it was pissing with rain. It was in was it Rotorua or somewhere?
Yeah, it was.
And I went, I was actually at a bit of confidence. I felt I was playing well, and I thought this is only going to go. I went, no, do you know, they said, what do you think? Do you want me to push for you to go on? This is the S&C coach. And I went, do you know what, I'm actually all right.
Is that the one?
And Dunners goes to me, he goes, I'm going to remind you of this when you get stuck in 99 caps. And then Ben goes to me, he goes, do you remember that time you didn't go on? You'd have been level with Conor.
Yeah.
I also said, do you remember the two test tour I missed because you were being bored? That would have taken me past Conor. So stop giving me grief on this.
That's a fair
He's always
answer.
got an answer.
Yeah. There's always something. I have a few of those games that I could have gone way further.
Totally. And actually, the ironic thing about the Dunners one was my 99th cap was that game against New Zealand 2 weeks later. And they went from being, because we'd now beaten them, they went, right, we
got
can't just
absolutely
rely on
lashed
rugby.
out of it,
And
yeah.
it became the World Rugby said after.
That was violence, yeah.
3 yellow cards, 2 red cards.
Yeah.
Robbie Henshaw got knocked out.
Gary
Zebo got
Zeebs got
yeah.
Malachi tried
And
to
it
behead
was-
him.
I'd
Yeah,
say it
which
was
is funny when
probably
they
the
became
most
teammates.
ferocious game that I'd ever played in.
I remember in that game being like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is like, this
Yeah.
is on the edge here,
And
and
actually,
like very loose. In
Jodie
terms
was
of violence.
watching it going. She was never so glad to see me coming off. So of course I was furious because we'd lost. And I go like, what do you mean you're happy? And she goes, well, like, you know, you'll now get to play your 100th game next week against Australia. And I'm like going, are you joking me? Like, we've just lost. We should have beaten them.
We got whacked.
It was so combative. And you're kind of going, if you'd have been one of those guys to get injured in that and maybe never played again, I would have been sitting on the 99.
Oh,
and would have
and
had
Dunners
to-
would have been first
Dunners
to
would have
ring
been
you.
right. He'd have been right for the first time in his
How are
life.
you, boy?
But New Zealand do what they always do, don't they? And they come back and
Yeah.
when it
They're
matters, they
fearless.
kind of tend to.
They're just so dangerous, aren't they? They're,
ferocious,
they're like, they played well that day, but they also brought an edge, like, and almost like, how dare you disrespect us by beating us a couple of weeks ago? They were,
Yeah.
being on the receiving end of that. I remember being like, whoa, we've literally woken the beast here, and this is the response that we're getting. But
And actually, there was learnings in it to go, well, actually, the best teams in the world still will bring an edge when they need to, when they really, really are backed against a wall. Not if
strip
we
it
want
back,
to be
yeah.
seen consistently as the best. You got to just be able to be ferocious at times.
You see it with Brazil as well with South Africa, that when they do it, like, because I've experienced being coached by him, but you see when South Africa lose or they don't play well, and the next week they come out and it nearly looks like they don't have a game plan. They just want to beat the out of whoever they're playing. Which is, there's a time and a place for that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
And of course, I don't want to bring it down, but New Zealand turn up at the next 2 World Cup quarterfinals, and that's that.
Yeah.
How much that first one hurt? Because watching that one in the stands, it was like watching a computer simulation the first half. I don't think they dropped the ball. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
No.
When they're on it, they're ridiculous.
That quarterfinal 2019 you're on about, that was a blur for me. That was just, they were on it. Everything they did was... And
It was like playing them at that time and to beat a 16-0. It was just, you couldn't. It was chasing shadows. It was,
yeah, everything was sticking, and then like they're going 7, 14, 20, whatever it was, and you're like, you knew how hard you have to work for scores against New Zealand. Like, you're just like, oh, this biggest day of your career, because you built it up as that, and you're like, this is getting away from us, this is getting away from us, and then pretty early on it was gone, and you're like,
we'd kind of had a game plan in 19, getting ready to play South Africa in a quarterfinal. So we sort of went, we're good enough
Japan.
to top our group.
Yeah.
New Zealand will probably beat South Africa. And Japan was just one
that,
of those days.
you speak about playing New Zealand, and like in the sixth, like everything was sticking. That Japanese team when we played them was like,
We
I was
made a
playing,
couple
like,
of mistakes.
chasing. We did make mistakes, but they were just,
they were
and their
electric.
crowd and everything, they were just
That was a
Jason
team playing
Sharp.
on emotion that day.
Yeah. And like we gave them a couple of ins where we made a mistake and they'd go the length and the place lifted. The place turned up expecting them to get thumped. And we started off like we were 2 or 3 tries up.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we
flying.
were.
And then we made
good
2
spot.
mistakes in the midfield. They scored off one of them, got a big line break off the other, and the place just went berserk.
Remember, because you're playing on the losing side there, but I remember there was part of me being like, Jesus, this atmosphere is incredible. Because it was so big, and like it was. They had talked about that game for years in the lead up to the World Cup.
Yeah.
We found out after, and they targeted it well, but like the atmosphere, the crowd, obviously, like you said, probably thought they'd maybe push us close or whatever, and then to beat us, and the atmosphere was lifting.
Yeah.
You know, in those desperate moments, you're kind of trying to find something.
But that quarter final was just one. So I started and finished my career with 40-point losses to the All Blacks. Just good.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
You're
we
not
had
the
some
last
wins
man
in
to
the
do
middle
that,
of it.
unfortunately.
No.
Yeah.
Is that the only thing that hurts over the years? Those World Cup, a few days with Ulster as well. I remember a few tears over the years as well. But
Yeah, there was some tough losses, mainly in the RDS with Ulster. But I think those World Cups, probably the 2015 one and the 2011 one, were the 2. 2019, when we lost to Japan, I would look at the Japan game more than the New Zealand game. I think that probably you looked at South Africa, who were, Razzie said himself, was looking at the next World Cup. But if you, for the team that had good defence, good kicking game, good set piece, if there's any team that were going to challenge them, that it was probably us then. We probably didn't suit a New Zealand, a free-flowing New Zealand throwing offloads, just with the nature of the team we had and the makeup. We had a few sort of elder people hanging in there who were good if it came to a combative game, but if it got open and loose, me being one of them, it probably didn't suit us as much. Whereas 2015, you look at the way we went through that group stage, and then just through sheer bad luck, to lose the spine of your team, you'd lose your captain and your line-out caller, your main ball carrier and Shawnee, your main line-out jumping back row and Pete,
10.
then your 10, Jared,
Tommy.
the defensive.
Tommy on the day, I think.
Tommy
on
went
the
off
day, he
early,
was-
yeah.
he
It
was
was
early, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
just to have the spine of your team, because you can cope if you lose 1 or 2 in your spine and you lose some in the periphery. You can cope with that because it is a team sport. But when
That
you
was
lose the
devastating.
entire
That was
spine, it
the-
is.
yeah.
But then to claw our way back into it and to have a kick to go level with them, and you could see they were like, and like it was a tough kick. But then to miss it, and then they go down the field and
score
score
straight away,
10
yeah.
swing. Then all of a sudden they didn't look back. But that, I think 2015 was the one that really, and then it was nearly worse because Scotland should have beaten Australia, and you'd be looking going, would you be playing Scotland in the semi-final?
You always look ahead to the semi, don't you? Then, like, even the last one, like, when
Now, thankfully it was Australia, and they end up thumping Argentina, but it was like, But yeah, look, it's been, by and large, I think that if I look back on my career, probably the Japan game is the only one that I've any, because I look at that 2015 and, that was the catalyst to go on and do what we did in 16 and 18. Whereas the Japan game, then the New Zealand game, like I didn't get another chance to have another go at that. That was it, done. So you have loads of those regrets, but it would have been nice to play in the semi-final of the World Cup, but there's a lot of Irish players.
I'm right there. I hung on for another 4 years, and I'm still in the same boat.
It's just, and a lot of it like that in 2023 was just the draw. Like that was a ferocious side of the draw to be on, and there was going to be 2 of the top 4 teams in the world were going to go out in the quarters, and you hoped it was going to be New Zealand and whichever of the other 2. But unfortunately, it was us, and it was heartbreaking to watch that, especially with Sean Fitzpatrick was in studio with us, or we were. That was the first game that I saw live.
Oh no!
And it's just it was because there were so many of those guys.
Proper chance that day.
And there were so many guys that I played with that were good friends, and you just were devastated because you know what it's like. You don't want anyone to have to go through that near miss in a quarterfinal.
Because that one is like, because it's such a near miss. Every player has like a couple of moments where you're like, if I did something different there, I could have affected the scoreboard. Whereas in 2019 we got whacked out the gate, so you're kind of like, well, I made a couple of mistakes, but it wasn't just me.
Exactly. Yeah.
But for me, the 23 one was so because we didn't start well. They raced ahead, which we spoke about not letting them do. Then we clawed our way back in, and then we all had 1 or 2 moments towards the end, like I had a couple, like before Ronan tried to go over for that try, I had like Aaron Smith on the blind side with like 2 meters, and I was like, surely on a like just because I'm taller, like I'm probably a little bit heavier than him, like I could have reached around him and scored. But then you're like, every player has moments like that. But yeah, we belong in the quarterfinal history books.
Yeah, the World Cup wait goes on, but it's weird. We're almost midway through a World Cup cycle again. What about this group? And I suppose Chicago would be a great way to kickstart something, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think this group will just continue on trending upwards as an Irish team. I think the experience. I don't know how many of them got on the line store. The experience those lads will have had out there. Andy, obviously that experience, and he'll bring it back, and he doesn't accept staying the same or like the same level. Like every time they meet up for camp, or we used to meet up for camp, it was like, right, what are we gonna get better at? How are we gonna get better? And I think you look at the positions, like 10 being an obvious one, like 2 unbelievable talents, and obviously there's a few more in the background too. They're going to push each other to like crazy high standards. I think that's the main thing, is the competition in the squad is huge, that it'll just keep the machine going. And that's when I retired. I was at peace with retiring because I'd reached the end and hung on for long enough. But the one thing in my head is like, that team is going to keep on winning trophies and winning big games. And when the World Cup is way too far away from me, but when it does come around, I think we'll witness something that hasn't been done.
Yeah, look, ultimately it's like anything. To do well the World Cup or Six Nations, you've got to have all the stuff Conor talked about, and then you just got to have a little bit of luck. The ball to bounce a certain way at a certain point in time. And look at that, if you take back that 23 game, if the ball had bounced a certain way and Ireland had got even closer, or New Zealand give away a penalty or something, you just need something to fall your way, or the draw to go your way to get it'll be a last 16, then a quarter final, and to get that confidence. And
How much are you looking forward to Chicago on the other side?
can't wait. I love Chicago City.
I'm going with Rory, so I'll be looking forward to it too.
I'll be there too, but I'm working.
We're working as well.
Actually, how dare you?
Different types of work.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll get a nice steak dinner.
Yeah.
Chicago cut.
Oh, deep dish
Cannot
pizzas.
wait. Yeah.
It'll be cool, won't it, to relive it as well. We're just going back for a few pets.
As long as Rory's
Really, just to remind everyone that we're still here.
It was us.
You've turned into those guys.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's the leader in Rory Best rather than the young hairy Rory Best that pops out.
A mixture of both.
It just depends what sort of leadership you need.
Yeah.
All things to all men. You have, as you know.
No better, man. Well, Rory, thanks for having us around the house today.
No
Thank
problem.
you, Rory, for
You're
being
very
our first
welcome.
guest.
My time to go. I have
Fine
to go.
start.
I have to work today.
Okay.
On the farm, no?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to coach now. Giving back to the local community.
You just never stop, do you?
No, I don't.
That's why you're an OB.
Give.
Yeah, what a way to start the pod. Lots more on the BBC, on the rugby front, on BBC Sounds and the BBC Sport website. Conor and I will be in Chicago reflecting on the game, hopefully with a win, and hopefully planning a serious night out with Mr. Best.
If he makes it.
Thank you very much.
We'll catch you then.